What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Lunch Table Sports Podcast. I know it's been a while. You're getting this a little later than usual. We've both been pretty busy, so I apologize for the lateness on this video. But in today's video, we're going to be going over and just kind of talking about each team's free agency, giving our thoughts and grades on it. So without further ado, let me share my screen right here. Is it all good on your end?
Yep.
Okay. So first team we're going to is the Atlanta Hawks. They didn't really do anything major. They brought in DeLon Wright. First trade, I like that move, just kind of getting another role player off the bench for them. And then Gorgeous Jang, just depth. They traded away Chris Dunn. They didn't really need him. I would say DeLon Wright's an upgrade over him. And Bruno Fernando, they traded to Boston. Kind of a failed draft pick for them. Hopefully he gets a new shot in Boston.
Yeah, Atlanta, I like their offseason. Nothing really like crazy. I like the Street Cooper draft pick. I like both their draft picks, Jalen Johnson. Their free agency wasn't very like they didn't bring anyone new, but they re-signed Trae Young and John Collins for the future. So they got them locked up. They re-signed Lou Will. So I like all the moves they made for sure.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that. Trae Young extension and John Collins re-signing, I thought were massive for them. And I'm glad they got both of those guys locked up. Moving on to the Boston Celtics. We talked about the Kemba Walker trade in our first podcast. If you haven't watched that, go check it out. But we know our thoughts on that. They brought in Al Horford. Josh Richardson, I think, is a very underrated trade. Josh Richardson really hasn't done anything since the Miami Heat. But I do think he's one of the better defenders in the NBA, which I think the Celtics need someone else who can defend in that starting lineup next to Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. So you have those three guys, and those three guys are pretty much locked down defensively. I think that team's going to be pretty scary defensively.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Josh Richardson, that was a great pickup for them. Good 3-and-D guy that can start or come off the bench for them. They brought in Chris Dunn too, he's also a really good defender. So they're just adding depth at that defensive side of the ball. Like they got Marcus Smart already. Josh Richardson and Chris Dunn are great additions for sure.
Yeah, they also got rid of the Tristan Thompson contract, which I thought was huge. He was on a pretty bad contract. And then a lot of people are upset that they got rid of Evan Fournier, but I think if I'm the Celtics, there's no way I'm paying them that much money. Moving on to the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets, their biggest free agency signing was Patty Mills, who they brought in on a 2-year, $12 million deal, making $6 million a year. If he can play the way he's been playing in the Olympics, that's an absolute steal of a contract. He was lights out for Team Australia. He won All Olympics team for basketball. They brought back Blake Griffin and Bruce Brown, which I thought were both great moves. They had a kind of a low-key free agency, but I didn't really think they needed to do anything too special. I thought they had amazing draft picks with Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharpe. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty solid free agency.
Yeah, I agree with you. Patty Mills, that was a great pickup for them. I mean, he was unreal in the Olympics, and I think that he can come in and be that replacement for Spencer Dinwiddie off the bench behind that big three, and provide some scoring off the bench with some of these rookies like Cam Thomas. And they lost Jeff Green, which I thought he was really good last year, but I don't think it's that big a deal. They lost Landry Shamet, which I think both of those are they're not huge deals, but they were both pretty good last year. So we'll see how it goes for the Nets. But I think their bench will be just as good, if not better, than last year.
Agreed. Next team we got up is the Charlotte Hornets. I was kind of confused of the Kelly Oubre signing. I mean, he can come in there and mention the young guys, be a vet, but that wing position, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, is already so stacked for the Hornets. Drafting Book Knight in the draft, already kind of moving Terry Rozier to that shooting guard position. You got him there. You got Book Knight. You got Gordon Hayward, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington. You got all these guys. I think the only thing Kelly Oubre is doing is taking away minutes from the young guys, stealing valuable minutes. So I don't really like that move for the Hornets. They got Mason Plumlee. I mean, he can come in there and just kind of fill that center gap until Kai Jones is ready to take it over. A lot of people are mad they got rid of Devontae Graham, but I didn't really think that was a big deal. He wasn't really finding minutes behind Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball. So overall, I think it's a okay free agency for the Hornets.
Yeah, I agree with you. The oh my gosh, Kelly Oubre Jr. signing was not the didn't make the most sense really, but I don't know. I think he can come in and find a role there, but I agree with you. It's going to take minutes away from the young guys, so I don't know. We'll see how that plays out, but I like their free agency a lot. Besides that, they brought in Mason Plumlee. It was a good signing. He was good on the Pistons last year. I can be a good backup center for these young guys. Mentor them a little bit, and they lost Devontae Graham, just like you said, but I think it's not the biggest deal in the world. That's just like you said. There's a lot of guards in that team. They lost Malik Monk too, so I think LaMelo Ball and Terry Rozier are really going to benefit from that, getting more minutes and playing time. So I wouldn't be too mad about that if I'm a Hornets fan.
Yeah. Moving on to Chicago Bulls. And in my opinion, they had an amazing free agency. I mean, they completely turned around their team. They brought in Lonzo Ball on a 4-year, $85 million deal. I was pretty shocked when I saw that. I saw the rumors, but I didn't really think they were true. And they brought him in. A lot of people could say it's questionable because they have Kobe White, but I still think when you have a chance to get this young, talented point guard, it's a great move. You can come in and provide defense, which is which would be pretty valuable to them. And then they brought in DeMar DeRozan, which he's getting up there in age, but he's still one of the top players in the NBA. And he can come in there and provide you scoring, playmaking. He'll be huge for that team. And then they didn't really give up anything for Ball or DeRozan in the sign-and trades. So I think those are two absolutely steals of contracts.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I mean, just a stellar off seasons for the Bulls. They're 100% a playoff team now, in my opinion. They got Lonzo, just like you said. Just he's a great defender. He's worked on that jump shot, improved it a lot. And I think that hopefully he can have an improved ball handling role where he's the main. The offense runs through him a little bit because I want to see him get back to those Chino Hills UCLA days where he was just dominant. We haven't really seen that in the NBA yet from him, but I like the DeMar DeRozan sign and trade too. He can be that all-star caliber player to go along Levine and Vucevic. But I think they got kind of a big three now. DeRozan, Vucevic, and Levine, and then they got Lonzo Ball behind that. That's pretty good, and I think they're going to be a really deep team with their bench too. So look out for the Bulls next year.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, in my opinion, the East might be better than the West. I'm not saying it is, but there's a chance for it to be. Next up is the Cavaliers. They didn't really do anything. They brought back Jarrett Allen. A lot of people are saying it's an overpay. Not in my opinion. I think this was an amazing contract. I think Mobley can fit next to Allen for many years to come. It was just they didn't really do anything, but they didn't really need to. I just think the biggest thing for the Cavs is just seeing progression from the young guys.
Yeah, for sure. They brought in Ricky Rubio too, which was a good deal to mentor some of those young guys and see he can take some minutes away so they don't have to play all the minutes, get some vets in there. But I like the Jared Allen signing too. I don't know. I'm a little iffy on it. It is a lot for him long term, but I don't know. It'll be an interesting fit with him and Mobley there. I mean, Mobley can run the four, but we'll see how it plays out. But I think he's completely worth that money. Just I don't know if it's in Cleveland.
Yep. Moving on, we got the Mavericks. They had a pretty uneventful free agency up until today when we're recording this. They signed Luka Doncic to a supermax extension, which I thought was absolutely amazing. I would pay Luka anything if I was the Mavericks. We heard trade rumors. I think those were just spread by non-Maverick fans who just wanted to see Luka traded. But Luka's the face of the franchise, and giving him an extension is absolutely amazing. And then Reggie Bullock, I'm not really a huge fan of that deal, paying a guy like Bullock $10 million a year. I think it could pay off because we've seen Luka, what he can do next to shooters like Seth Curry, Tim Hardaway Jr. They also brought back Tim Hardaway Jr., which I thought was a good deal. He played really good for them last year. But I just want to see the Mavericks do one more big splash in free agency to try to get another stud alongside Luka.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like all the deals they did. Nothing really too crazy though. We'll see what happens with Porzingis. He's still on the team, but I think he'll be traded by the start of the year. We'll see what they'll get for that for him though. Who can they bring in to pair alongside Luka? The Porzingis thing didn't really work, but I think if they try to bring another star in there, it could work out really well. And just propel them even further.
Yeah, agreed. Next up, we got the Nuggets. They signed Jeff Green, just bringing more depth. We'll see if they bring back Paul Millsap. But I thought Will Barton bringing that defense and shooting back was a good deal. Nothing too special. They just need to get back a healthy Murray, see progression throughout their team chemistry. I still think this team is one of the best teams in the West.
Yeah, I agree with you. That Jeff Green signing was a great deal. Only $5 million a year, so not very high risk. They brought back Will Barton, just like you said, which he's a great player off the bench for that. Yeah, but not very eventful for them either. They're still going to be up there in the West, top of the standings, but I think they got better on their bench for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Next up, we got the Pistons. I'm a big Pistons fan. I hate to say it. I don't really like the Kelly Olynyk signing. He was amazing last year for the Rockets, just putting up numbers after numbers. I had him on my fantasy basketball team. He was really good. But I just don't understand bringing a stretch 4, stretch 5 in there. I feel like instead they needed a big glass cleaning center off the bench behind Stewart. I only like this contract is if he doesn't start over Isaiah Stewart. I just think it hurts the development of Isaiah Stewart to bring in a guy like this for 3 years to start over him. And then Trey Lyles, that's just depth. I don't really see anything more than it. And then Corey Joseph, I thought was a good deal. Bringing him back, being a mentor to Saban Lee, Killian Hayes, and Kate Cunningham. But other than that, I just want to see development from the young guys.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. The Kelly Olynyk signing was kind of weird, but he's not really on the same timeline as some of these young guys for the rebuild that they're in right now. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but he can definitely add depth if he comes off the bench or if he starts over Isaiah Stewart. But I agree with you. I think he shouldn't. But if he does, we saw what he did last year in Houston. He can be a really good player next to all those young guys for sure.
Moving on, we got the Warriors. I'm honestly surprised. I thought they were going to go out and make a big trade, maybe for Dame, Ben Simmons, and Beal. They could still do it, but it's looking unlikely right now. They got absolutely scammed by the Jazz, trading Pascal for a 2026 second-round pick. I thought it was a pretty bad deal. He's shown he can be very valuable off the bench for them. I also like the Otto Porter Jr. contract. I thought that was a steal, him and Iguodala, giving their shooting and defense off the bench, which I thought was great. Well, other than that, I like their draft picks, but I expected more from them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wanted to see them make a big splash too. I mean, just like you said, it still could happen, but as we get closer to the season, it probably is less and less likely to happen. Otto Porter Jr., I think that was a great signing. He can be just like you said, that 3-and-D guy off the bench. He's very underrated. They lost Kent Bazemore and Eric Pascal, which I think were two key players to them last year. So, I mean, we'll see. They replaced them with Andre Iguodala and Otto Porter Jr., so we'll see how that plays out. But all in all, I like the offseason so far for the Warriors.
Yeah, especially the draft. Next up, we got the Rockets. They didn't really do anything in free signing. You see them bringing in Tice on a big deal. I think that's just kind of to mentor the young guys. They brought back David Nwaba, just mention the young guys. But overall, I love their draft. I think this team next year is going to be a super fun team to watch. I don't see John Wall in their future. Maybe they squeeze out a trade for him if he plays good or buy out his contracts. But I think in the future 5 years, a team with KPJ, Jalen Green, Josh Christopher, Kenyon Martin Jr., Christian Wood, Alperen Sengun, that's going to be one of the funnest teams in the NBA to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. They had a super, super good draft. It's the end of an era with James Harden, but I think they're doing a great job in their rebuild so far. Jalen Green, I think that he might end up being the most talented or best player from this draft. We'll see though. But I like Alperen Sengun a lot too. Josh Christopher, all their draft picks are great. Just like you said, the Daniel Tice signing, it's not too big, but I like it. You can come off the bench or start for them. So I think they did a great job this offseason.
Yep. Next up, we got the Pacers. They signed Torrey Craig. I think that's just depth. He was really good for the Suns in their playoff run. They brought back TJ McConnell, which I thought was really good for them. He was kind of an underrated player last year, didn't get talked about enough. But I just think overall, I want to see the team get healthy. Hopefully, Miles Turner can come back healthy and TJ Warren. But I definitely think don't write this team off yet.
Yeah, I like the TJ McConnell signing too. They brought in Torrey Craig, which he was great in the playoffs last year for Phoenix. So nothing too crazy, but definitely a solid off season for the Pacers so far.
Next up, we got the Clips. I also was expecting the Clips, just like the Warriors, to maybe make a big trade for a center, maybe Miles Turner. He was talked about in rumors, maybe Porzingis, maybe a better point guard, but they didn't really do anything. They signed Justice Winslow. I thought that was a pretty solid deal. They brought in Keon Johnson in the draft, which I loved a lot for them. But I just think overall, getting back a healthy Kawhi, hopefully Reggie Jackson can keep up playing at the level he's been playing at in the playoffs. Bringing back a healthy Surge, but hopefully this team can take the next jump.
Yeah, definitely was a good offseason for the Clippers. They re-signed Kawhi, which obviously was great. They re-signed Reggie Jackson, who I love how he played last year in the playoffs and during the year. They had a great draft. So all in all, great offseason for the Clippers so far for sure.
Yep. All right. Next up, we got the Lakers. And the Lakers had a very eventful free agency, bringing in Russell Westbrook in a trade that sends Kuzma to the Wizards, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, and first-round picks. I'm not gonna say I absolutely love it, but I don't really like it. I mean, Westbrook, he doesn't space the floor, which I think they desperately needed. He doesn't really provide great defense, which I think they needed. I just think he's just a big name, and I don't really think they needed to go out and make a blockbuster trade for a big superstar like Westbrook. There's talks that they were going to trade for Buddy Hield, which I think could have been more. It would have helped them in much more ways than getting a ball dominant guy like Westbrook. I don't know if he'll fit good to AD and LeBron. But other than that, I love the Kendrick Nunn signing, a steal of a contract, bringing in Malik Monk on a minimum deal, steal of a contract. They're bringing in all these vets who are trying to win rings. But other than the Westbrook deal, I like what they've been doing.
Yeah, I agree with you. It'll be an interesting fit with Westbrook, but I think that if you got a chance to bring Russell Westbrook to your team, you got to do it. And I think that they'll figure it out for sure. LeBron, he can play off the ball. He does. I don't think he wants to be the primary ball handler all the time. I think this will give them a chance to be fully healthy when the playoffs come around because they'll just have more star power and they won't all have to play it all at the same time every night. But besides the Westbrook signing or trade, I liked all their moves this offseason. They brought back Dwight Howard. He was great when they won the championship. They brought in Melo Anthony. He can be a three-point guy off the bench. Malik Monk, all these guys, these shooters that they needed when they brought in Russell Westbrook. So I think that they did a great job this offseason for sure.
Yep. Moving on to the Grizzlies. They got rid of Jonas Valanciunas, but they got the 10th overall pick and got Zara Williams, which I thought was a bit of a reach, but knowing the Grizzlies development staff, I have faith that they can develop him. But overall, the Grizzlies kind of had an uneventful free signing. They didn't sign anybody, but I definitely think the Grizzlies are going to take a huge step up this year. I'm excited to see how Ja Morant is going to play, how his development's going, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr., all those young guys. So overall, I think just seeing a step up from those guys in free agency or in the regular season will be fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. They didn't really do that much besides the trade for Jonas Valanciunas away. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I didn't really see the reasoning for it. I don't know how Eric Bledsoe will fit in off the bench. Steven Adams, I like that a lot, but I think Jonas Valanciunas is a lot better. I think that they need to start this rebuild for sure. Like just dive completely into it. I think they're kind of half and half. They're trying to rebuild, but they're still trading for some vets. But we'll see. All these guys just another year under their belt. Jaren Jackson Jr. coming back healthy. So I think the Grizzlies will make a push for the playoffs this year, definitely.
Moving on to the Miami Heat. This is another team I absolutely love the free agency. They extended Jimmy Butler. They brought back Duncan Robinson on a 5-year deal. They brought in Kyle Lowry. I absolutely love that. I think they've been lacking a point guard who can facilitate and play defense, and he's kind of a glue player. He he glues everything together. He's like the final piece to the puzzle, and I like that for them. I think that's exactly what they needed. And then PJ Tucker, I think he can come in there and start at the 4 right away. We see what he did in the playoffs. He provided great defense. He can clamp up your best player. So I think that was great. And then getting Victor Oladipo on a 1-year minimum, that's an absolute steal of a contract. He'll come in and be their 6th man off the bench. You'll have the scoring from him and Tyler Hero off the bench. The Miami Heat are definitely a team you have to watch out for.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. They had probably, in my opinion, besides the Lakers and Heat had the best all season so far. Just like you said, they brought in Kyle Lowry, which I think he's going to fit right in, be the distributor for that team, play out the ball. Oladipo, just like you said, they absolutely stole him on that deal. They brought back Duncan Robinson, who's just a sharpshooter, can be great out the bench or in the starting lineup, whatever they need. Just like you said, PJ Tucker too. He was very, very good in the playoffs for the Bucks. Played on Kevin Durant all series. Played on Devin Booker a bit in the playoffs. So just like you said, he can come up your best guy. He can guard 1 through 5. So I think that's a great signing too. That went under the radar a little bit.
Yeah. Next up, we got the Milwaukee Bucks. I love what they did. They had to bring back Bobby Portis, which they did. He just embraced the city so much, and he could have gone elsewhere for a lot more money. The Bucks didn't have a ton of cap space, but he stayed loyal to his roots, where he had his best season of his career and re-signed with them. They brought in George Hill, which I thought was a good signing. We saw in the playoffs they didn't really have a backup point guard. They had Jeff Teague, but I didn't really think he was a good backup for them. I think George Hill will be a lot better. Well, he was on the team last year in the playoffs, so I think he can come back and do good. And then other than that, they didn't really do anything. I think they're just trying to run it back.
Yeah, very uneventful for the Bucks besides some re-signings, but I like it all in all. Just run it back with the same team. I mean, it worked for you last year. Don't want to change much, so I like what they did for sure.
Next up, we got the T-Wolves. I really expected a lot more from them. I was hoping they would go out and trade for a guy who can play next to Cat. Cat really hasn't had that big power forward next to him. Maybe Jaden McDaniels can take that step up, but I would have liked to see them trade for a guy like Marvin Bagley, Kristaps even maybe. But I still think there's a shot they can sign a guy like Larry Markkinen or someone else in free agency. But other than that, they haven't done anything.
Yeah, just basically haven't done anything this offseason. I would have liked to see the Timberwolves maybe try to get in the draft, trade for a draft pick, just keep building on their young players that they already have. But yeah, very uneventful for the Timberwolves this offseason.
Next up, we got the Pelicans, and I absolutely love what they did in free agency. Devontae Graham was a great deal, great contract. I think he can come in there and step in and be that starting point guard. And then they brought in Jonas Valanciunas, which is a great deal. I think they kind of stole him away from the Grizzlies. Tomas Satoransky, I think, flew under the radar. I like him. I think he's an underrated player. I love his defense. And then I like their draft picks and Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. So I'm super excited to see this young team play next year.
Yeah, me too. I think that they had a great offseason, kind of retooling a little bit, changing things up because it didn't really work last year. I think Devontae Graham kind of got thrown or kicked to the curb a little bit when LaMelo Ball came in. He was one most improved player the year before. So I think new situation, he'll get more minutes. He'll be in that starting lineup. He can really flourish from that and get back to what he was when he won most improved.
All right, we got the Knicks here. A lot of people say the Evan Fournier contract is a bit of an overpay. It just depends. If you get the NBA Evan Fournier, then yes, it's an overpay. But if you get Olympic Evan Fournier, then it's a steal of a contract. Evan Fournier playing for Team France, he was lights out. He couldn't miss. He was a go-to scorer, all Olympic team. So I think if you get that kind of shooting on that team, that's very, very valuable. And then I love the Kemba Walker signing. He can step in and be that starting point guard. This Knicks team, it's surprising to say, but this Knicks team is going to be super fun to watch with Kemba, Fournier, R.J. Barrett, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson. I just think bringing back D Rose and Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks are all great re-signings.
Yeah, the Knicks just had a really solid all season. They didn't make like the biggest of moves, but they just made really solid moves. They brought in Evan Fournier, which I agree with you. If he plays like he did in the Olympics this year, that's a steal of a contract. I just hope Kemba can stay healthy. If he gets back to how he was a couple of years ago in Charlotte, that's also a steal. I mean, a little past his prime, but I still think he can be good enough to lead that team and be the court general. But they're just a really deep team. They still got RJ Barrett. They got Derrick Rose off the bench. They just have so many guys, and their bench is one of the best. They made one of the best bench moves this offseason, just adding depth to the team. So I like a lot what they did for sure.
We got Oklahoma City Thunder here. They brought in Derek Favors, be the starting center or backup. I thought giving Shea the extension was a great move. We saw trade talks. They were trying to trade Shea for number one. I don't really think I don't know if that's entirely true, but I do like that the Thunder are embracing Shea as their next franchise player, and extending him was a great move.
Yeah, I think the OKC Thunder, a little bit like the Rockets, they're end of an era with Russell Westbrook and all those superstars that they had in the past. But they have so many draft picks, and I think that the main thing for them is just got to hit on these draft picks and just get all these young guys in, get them all developed. And I think that if they do that, the free agent signings will come and they'll be right back to where they were a couple years ago.
Next up, we got the Magic. They really do anything for agency. They brought back Robin Lopez and Mo Wagner. Mo Wagner, I thought, on a 2-year minimum deal for what he did for the Magic last year was great. And I just love that they have Franz and Mo on the same team. That's going to be so fun to watch. I think that's super special for them. I love what they did in the draft, Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner. I thought those were both steal picks at where they got them. And I'm really excited to see how that young team's going to play together.
Yeah, the Magic, they're just super, super young, just like you just said, and they're just going to be super fun to watch for years to come. I like the Mo Wagner signing a lot too. Me and you are both big Michigan fans, so it'll be cool to see those two brothers play on the same team in the NBA. So I'm excited to watch them next year.
Here we got Philly. I was kind of surprised on the Andre Drummond signing. I mean, I didn't really think Drummond was the guy to go for a 1-year minimum to be a backup center. I mean, throughout his career, we just seen him get worse and worse and worse. He doesn't really have a huge work ethic. He plays lazy on the court. So he's kind of fits a backup center now. I don't really know if he's starting caliber anymore, but I still kind of shocked nobody gave him a shot. And then I kind of expected a Ben Simmons trade here too. I'm not sure what's taking so long for it to happen. I do still expect it to happen, but I'm still interested to see where Simmons will end up.
Yeah, I think the 76ers' biggest move is going to be when Ben Simmons gets traded, whenever that might be. But I agree with you. The Drummond signing was a little bit weird. I don't see how he fits into that team. I would have liked to see him maybe go to the Celtics or a team like that had a lack of centers, or they have young centers that he could step in and mentor them and start working off the bench. But it's weird going to the Sixers. The history between him and Joel Embiid, I don't know. We'll see how it works out, but it is very, very weird for sure.
All right, Suns. They didn't really do anything either. They brought in JaVale McGee to be a backup center, brought in Landry Shamet. Overall, I just think they're trying to run it back.
Yeah, I like the Suns offseason so far. They re-signed Campaign. I like the JaVale McGee signing too, and they brought in Landry Shamet. So just all around, very solid offseason.
Next up, we got Portland. They didn't really do anything either. They brought back Norman Powell. That might be a slight overpay, but I definitely thought he was really good for them last year. But I would have liked them to go out and make a splash. So bring in a guy, another stud next to Dame, complete a big three. Dame's never really had an elite big three in his career. He's always kind of had McCollum as his sidekick. But there's still room to make a move, but I thought this was a very uneventful free agency for the Blazers.
Yeah, very uneventful for sure. And I think that if Dame does end up playing for the Trailblazers this year, it'll be his last, and they're gonna have to do something because they've had him and CJ McCollum on the same team for basically their whole careers, and I think that it hasn't worked, and I don't think it will work as they keep getting older. So I think they got to commit to the rebuild after this year if it doesn't work out. and trade Dame away, but we'll see when that happens and if it does.
Yeah. Next up, we got Sacramento. They re-signed Rashawn Holmes to a deal. I thought that was good money. He's a very underrated player, in my opinion. They also brought back Terrence Davis, who had a really good rookie year with the Raptors. But I also, too, I mean, I've been saying this for a lot of teams, but I expected more out of him. I still think they should trade Buddy Hield. I don't really think he has a place on that team anymore. Maybe capitalize on Marvin Bagley's value before it starts to go down. He hasn't really proven that he can be a reliable guy. He's a very fragile player. He just gets hurt all the time. But I'm still kind of shocked on the Davion Mitchell draft pick, but I kind of expected more out of him.
Yeah, I think the Kings, they need to make a splash. They got De'Aaron Fox. They got to do something to pair him up with somebody. I agree with you. I think that Buddy Hield is on his way out. I don't know when it will happen, but I think it will. There's been rumors about Pascal Siakam and Ben Simmons. I don't know. I don't know what the trade packages would be for them, but I think I don't know. It would be a good fit. I think I would like the Ben Simmons trade better than the Pascal trade. I think he wouldn't have to be the primary ball handler. De'Aaron Fox would be there. He could play more of a 3-4 on the court. So I think that would be a good fit, but we'll see. But very uneventful so far.
Next up, we got the Spurs. I'm still kind of confused on the Josh Primo pick. I wasn't a big fan of that. And then I expected them to fully commit to the rebuild this offseason. I mean, they traded away DeMar, Rudy Gay, but other than that, and then they just filled those spots with vets with Doug McDermott, and they signed Zach Collins. I think that was a bit too pricey for a guy who really hasn't shown he can play a full NBA season. And then coming off an ACL tear too, you don't know if he's going to play the same. I would have liked if they could go after a guy like Lauri Markkanen or just a young free agent with something to prove. I think that would have did them good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the Spurs are another one of those teams that's kind of on the border of they're trying to rebuild, but they're also not, and they're not fully committing to it. So I think that they need to fully jump into it and just go young and stockpile those draft picks like we've seen other teams do, and just get all these guys on the same timeline to come up together and get the Spurs back to the promised land.
We got the Toronto Raptors here. I think it was a good deal to move on from Kyle Lowry. I think they both knew their time was up. Kyle Lowry, absolute Toronto legend. I thought they got a great package in return. Goran Dragic can be a great mentor to all those young guys they got on the team coming off the bench. And then Precious Achiuwa, a great young guy. We'll see what he can do in Toronto. I definitely think they capitalize on Lowry's value. I like the Gary Trent resigning. I think he's very underrated. I think he can come in there and start shooting guard with Van Vliet, Trent backcourt. But other than that, I like how they're kind of committing to the rebuild.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that letting go of Kyle Lowry was a good move. He's been there his whole career, and I think the time was up. I think it's time to commit to the rebuild too for the Raptors. Their team is already pretty young. I like the Goran Dragic trade too. I think he's a good piece to bring in. He can mentor some of the young guys, but I think that the players that they brought in, the young guys that they have, I think that the Raptors are in the right direction.
Next up, we got the Jazz. They got brought in Rudy Gay, Hassan Whiteside, Eric Pascal. I love all the moves for them. They're just kind of building on that last season. Last season, they kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I wouldn't say out of nowhere. We knew they were going to be a good team, but not the one seed. Bringing back Mike Conley was great. He completely brought them back to the playoffs. So I think they had a pretty good free agency.
Yeah, I like the Jazz free agency too. Disappointing what happened in the playoffs last year for them, but I think they're retooling the right way to try and make it back and make a better run than they did this year.
And finally, we conclude with the Washington Wizards. I thought Spencer Dinwiddie was a good deal, giving him a shot to be a legitimate starting point guard in the NBA. I definitely think he can be that. Kuzma, we'll see how he fits in. They have a ton of young wings with him, Corey Kispert, Hachimura, then you have Dia. So we'll see which out of those guys step up to be the primary scorer. And then, I mean, we could still see a Bradley Beal trade at this point. I don't know. Maybe it's getting a little too late for that. But I definitely think the Wizards need to move on from him and just commit to the rebuild as well.
Yeah, I liked the trade that the piece they got back for Russell Westbrook. I think that's all that they could have got that the Lakers could give up. I think Kuzma, I mean, people forget that the Lakers kept him for a reason. He was really good before they brought in Anthony Davis, but I think he kind of got kicked to the curb a little bit when he came in, and he wasn't really that. He didn't get as much touches, or he didn't get as many opportunities as he did before. So I think going to a new team, new situation, I think he can really flourish from that, and I hope he does well. So I like the Wizards off season too.
Yeah. All right, that concludes today's video. The article to that will be in the description below. Make sure to like and subscribe. That helps out a ton. It'll let us know that you like our videos. Interviews are coming out this month. One of them is going to be with MLB All-Star JJ Putz, and we will have possible other NFL agents and players come on to the show. So if you want that, comment down below when we should drop it, and we'll see you in the next video.